Super quick and impromptu video here from a web designer talking about logo design just because I see a lot of this stuff and I'm interested because I interact with it all the time and I have some thoughts. Again, I'm not a logo designer, but my name is Szymanski. I own a web development company called Find a Tech. I like to talk about design topics, development topics, agency building things, and welcome to the channel. But if you look at this image that we have on the screen here, these are just like 50 company logos then and now from like big name brands that you would see. Now again, this might totally contradict the design and creativity people that are out there, which do great work, and I am not one of them as far as like, making assets for companies, whether they're logos or what have you. But I do have an opinion on this because I am the one that has to deal with it on the web design side. And I just want to bring up a couple points that maybe your logo designer doesn't think of or doesn't bring up like right away because maybe they're used to like more of a static thing, whether that's like on actual print or it's on a digital graphic that may be resized, but the actual assets aren't resized. I'll explain what I mean. The first thing that I want to just like kind of call to your attention is I get a lot of clients that need to create logos. So they go to a logo designer, they go to Fiverr, whatever, and they just say, I want this concept, in this manner. So maybe it's like, just some sort of image that they have in their head, and they have like, they want to like to combine two elements to make something and make it look cool, right? And a lot of times, the creative aspect of that is fantastic. Like you have a good designer, concept is awesome. The only thing is like in the details. What I love, what I've looked at all these big companies, and let's just look at this real quick. And you see it's then and now, so you can actually tell it's like really giving it away. If you look at this Apple logo then, and you look at it now, obviously it's a drastic difference, can barely even be compared. But what is the big thing here? This is like a freaking picture. Like there's like and I know it's hard to see here, but there's like so much going on in this image, and you can look these all up, and look them all up together. But this is like, there's like a whole picture here, right? And then at some point, and that was a long time ago, and now everything's kind of trending in one direction, which is like simplified, flat, no shading, one color. And I just think that we should embrace that a little bit more than we should reject it. There's a fine line between being unique and being like unnecessarily like difficult or unique, right? So like this Firefox logo is a good example. You could have something like that, but I would say that that's almost too much like going on in a logo because the detail of that is going to get kind of, it's not that bad with like when the colors shift because I understand what they're doing there, but if it's like a real close red to like a real close orange, you're just going to lose that detail like in so many different places. Again, like Instagram's a good example. They do a good job of it, but really, I think the easiest go-to and best thing to do if you're trying to create a logo is make it like very, very easy to see in whatever situation. So always like if I was creating a logo, I've done this multiple times, is monochromatic or like one or two colors, no shading, and then it looks good on any color. So like for instance, this 3M logo is all red. Like that's the logo. If it's on white, it's all red. If it's on a black background, it's probably all red, as long as it looks good in the background. And if it's on like a background in between, it's probably maybe like a white or a black, depending on what the best color is there. So that's my thing, is like it just adds complexity, and most of the time it's unnecessary. If your brand is unique, your logo can be unique while being simple. It's just the kind of style that I like personally. It's obviously this is a subjective thing, but one thing I'm going to say to you is if you look at all these companies that you know of, and then look at a bigger list, 100, 150, 200 companies that you know of, they have probably spent millions of dollars in marketing and marketing design and research. And 90% of them have gone to the flat, monochromatic or two color, no shading, simple logo design, and just differentiated themselves based off of like that logo being different than other companies, but based on their brand different, like being leading the charge, and like whether or not you think some of these companies are good or not, like they're differentiating in that way. So I would just say like don't think that your logo has to differentiate you entirely. It's more about what your brand does, because you could have a fantastic logo and your brand would suck, or vice versa or whatever. But like, you know, that's just what I'm seeing, is everything is either a word mark or like an abstract. I mean, you got to love like a Nike logo. Like everybody, like, takes time to, get people to understand what that is. I wouldn't necessarily just say, maybe go from abstract from the start. That's a cool idea. But, but think of the simplicity and the versatility of that logo. It's one color. It's just a mark. You can put it any color, anywhere. It's just really easy. The last point, I know that a lot of that was kind of like abstract. The last thing I want to talk about is just specifically with website design. The logo is going to change size. It's not like it's on a specific graphic and you kind of have control of it. It's going to change size. So it's going to be like, maybe 150 pixels or something, in one part of the site, and then it's going to be real small in the header, maybe like 50 pixels or something. I'm making these numbers up. But the point is that, one, you got to make sure that the quality of the logo is high, but that's sort of should be standard. But the other thing is, like, if you have really tiny details or that shading or anything in your logo, it's gonna look like, think of it like if you were looking at a full page, like a logo is like the whole size of this image here, right? You're gonna be able to see those details really good. It's gonna look really good. But then when it's like the size of, this AT&T globe here, and it'd be like a logo with like a lot of detail in it, you can't see it. It's the exact same example with this old Apple logo. You can't even see what that is. So my point is, like, try to limit, the amount of detail in there, like the deep detail. Every single one of these has gone to a more simplistic look. And it's not because that's just the style. I mean, that's partially it, but it's also because of the way that we interact with these logos now. They're not just like plastered on like a big side of a building or a billboard or something. They're in like sizes that are like minuscule on phones and different things like that. So you got to be able to brand yourself and not really affect the visual nature of what they're actually looking at. You don't want to negatively affect it with putting too much detail in there. And the last bit is, like, this is the specific web designer example, like way up here, if you can see up the top, that's called a favicon. And we have to set that as web developers, right? You can see Google's, like, even though they have that whole like different color thing going on, that's another little quick tip there. I don't want this video to get too long, but look at what Google's logo. I don't know if this is exactly what it is now. I think it's pretty close. Look at Google's logo over here in the before and after thing or whatever. And, it's the whole logo, right? You actually kind of need, a lot of times, you're going to need a standardized logo, and there's probably a whole other thing, but you're going to need like a regular logo. Consider like if it's like more vertical or square or long, because that's going to affect it, depending on where you put it, like on a website or something. But the other thing is you're going to need a favicon, which is always a square. So you're going to need to like think about, okay, well, if this is my logo, like Google, it's all written out like this. They made the decision to just make this like G, maybe with something behind it or whatever. But the point is that you need that element as well. These aren't really complex things, but there's just like little tiny details in there. Funny, because you don't want tiny details, but there's little tiny things that you need to think about and consider when you're doing this, because it's going to make your life easier. It's going to make your logo designer's life easier. It's going to make your web developer's life easier. And I just think that it's important to think about when you're consulting somebody on the logo or you are getting it done for your business. So that was just a quick, super impromptu video about logos, because I deal with that all the time. Hopefully you got something out of it. Thank you for watching. I greatly appreciate it. I will talk to you guys in the next one.